Getting a warrant to the judge, drag and drop. This is our affidavit and warrant request. It's in there. All I need to do is click sign and then send directly to the judge. Yes. That's it. Judge has it. Warrant from ezJustice allows law enforcement, prosecutors, judges, and even clerks to process search warrants completely electronically. Check it out. Now this really starts with the police officer's portal. Now in order to get in this portal, we create an account per law enforcement entity, and then those officers or administrators would create all of their users underneath of their law enforcement entity's account. Right, so the police departments are going to maintain their user. To kick this off though, we'll go to submit e-signed packet, choose our court. Now multiple courts per state can be connected inside of the ezWarrant application. Next, they're going to choose the search warrant packet type. Right, so we'll pick an OVI search warrant. What this allows us to do is upload templates up to the system for the police officer to then type up in Word, or alternatively, fill out right online here. Simply type it up and then upload it to the system. And the system is going to prompt, hey, what exactly is in this template? Right now, this is both the affidavit and warrant request all in one. Add. It'll upload those documents to the system. Now, over on the left, I'll go ahead and choose an available judge. Now, this is really done a couple of different ways. The police officers are able to see which judges said, hey, I'm available for signing, or we could alternatively upload a duty judge schedule, and then in that duty judge schedule, they could automatically show the police officers which judge is available based on the schedule. Right, so let's just do OVI, Sally, Stark, description here. Hey, what's my police officer's callback number? Is this an emergency or not? Right, so we can indicate that, and it can use a completely different set of notification workflows and send a completely different set of messages if needed. Any callback instructions, any additional notes, and then something new to ezWarrant is actually our custom fields here. So we can ask police report numbers, search warrant types, incident numbers, and make sure that's collected and actually assign roles to that. Now, of course, in the middle of the screen here, we have the documents. Now, this thing is ready to be electronically signed. So as a police officer, all I need to do is click to sign. And once all of my signature fields are complete, I have the ability to, over here on the left to, in this case, either submit it directly to the judge or go to the prosecutor first. Now, this is completely customizable, right? We could always enforce warrants to go through the prosecutor or district attorney's office first. We can even do it on a template by template or warrant by warrant basis. Right now, we downloaded a warrant template out of the system. If a police officer did upload their own warrant, very easy to do, simply just drag and drop your own document in, and to sign, they just click insert, insert their signature, and drop their signature on the document and resize it accordingly. Now that this thing's signed, ready to rock and roll, go ahead, submit this to the prosecutor, click yes, and that will kick off the workflow settings to notify the prosecutor. So the prosecutor is going to get notified via text, email, and or voice call. And so we'll jump over to our prosecutors tab. Here we are, right here. So this is the prosecutor's queue. Now they got notified in the system because they said, hey, I am available for e-signing. Okay? So they got a text, email, and or phone call to let them know that a warrant is in here. And those notifications can be customized and provide additional context about the warrant, such as who submitted it, the description, the type of warrant, what agency, time, so on and so forth. Let's take a look at that in just a few minutes. So the prosecutor can access this portal either via the ezWarrant website or on the ezJustice mobile apps, both available on the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. I'll go ahead and open it up. Now, the very first step, it's going to say, hey, are you sure you want to acknowledge this packet? Right? Prosecutor will click continue. There we go. The packet has been acknowledged. Now, what that can do is send a text back to the officer saying, hey, prosecutor's taking a look at it. Now, over on the left, we have all of the information about the warrant, right? Who submitted it, what type it is, any of those notes or callback instructions the officer put in. Of course, in the middle of the document, we see the warrant itself. Now the prosecutors have a couple of options here. They could click the reject button, type a rejection reason in this box, mark it rejected, send it right back to the officer. Okay. Alternatively, the prosecutors actually have the ability to download this template, modify it, re-upload it. Of course, then it needs to go back to the officer for them to re-sign, and then it can go either directly to the judge or back to the prosecutor first and then the judge, just depending on what's needed. Now, the other thing the prosecutor has the ability to do is inject a sealing entry. Right? So they can click add sealing entry. They can either upload their own or use the sealing entry template that we actually have baked into the system. So right here is our request for sealing, right? And the prosecutor actually needs to sign this. And then here is our motion to seal that the judge needs to sign. Notice how the prosecutor can't sign, right? So we'll go ahead and stick that in. Prosecutor can sign. It'll inject the prosecutor's stored electronic signature. Right, so now I have both a warrant request and affidavit, as well as a sealing entry, all in this packet so far. So now once the prosecutor approves this, clicks the green bar, the judge that was selected will be notified. And again, those notifications can happen via text, email, or voice call. So we'll jump over to the judge's portal. Right, so they got maybe an email during the day, a text, and a call at night, depending on the time. Right here. We'll go ahead, sign into the system, either on the website or on the mobile application. The very first thing it's going to ask is, hey, Judge, are you sure you want to acknowledge this packet? Judge will click continue. That can kick a notification back to the officer saying, hey, Judge is taking a look at this, stand by to be sworn in. Now, over here on the left, we see a lot of the same information that the prosecutor saw, right? The judge, though, will also see the fact that it was sent to the prosecutor and the prosecutor approved it, if this warrant request went through the prosecutor's office. Now, of course, in the middle of the screen, we have the search warrant itself, right? Judge can look through that. And then we also have the sealing entry that's been signed, ready to go to be signed by the judge. All right? Now, the judge needs to swear the officer in. There's a couple options to do that. The officer did provide their callback number right here. So the judge can either dial that on a phone of their choosing, call them, swear them in, or the judge actually has the ability to click the call officer button, which will call the judge's phone first, then the officer's phone, using the ezWarrant system. Now the benefit to that is that call can be recorded. It'll also come from our one phone number that we're using for all the text notifications, all the voice call notifications. That way everybody can save that number, has the state name, electronic warrant system, so everything's flowing through that one centralized number, and there's no potential issues of what's coming from what number, right? So myself, the judge, I've called the officer, I've sworn them in, either using the ezWarrant system or on a phone myself. Go ahead and click sign all, inject my electronic signature. Right, so that put the signature in, as well as the date and time. And so automatically stamps that in. And then over on the sealing entry, I need to sign this as well. I have to go ahead and sign that. Right? The other thing we have is, let's say, the ability to remove this, right? The judge says, no, I don't actually want to seal this. They could just click the remove sealing entry. The sealing entry comes off of the warrant packet, and just the warrant request and affidavit would be returned to the officer. Okay. Now, we've also added e-sign stamps, right? So if we needed to check some areas on documents, we can upload and even default size these stamps. Obviously, this one's a little big by default, but they could come in, check different boxes, inject a fact that a telephonic oath was administered on templates right inside of the system. Now, this warrant is complete. Of course, just like the prosecutor step, the judge would have the ability to click the reject button, type the reason, and send it back. Right? And even if this was signed, right, it would just take all the signatures off and just send it right on back. However, in this case, this one's ready to rock and roll, so we'll go ahead, click the green bar as the judge, and send the entire packet right back to the police officer. So they'll come into their portal, They just got a text, email, or phone call, right, saying, hey, judge has approved this, officer returned to your portal, which again is a web-based application. They'll go to their queue and follow the steps and see who it's assigned to along the entire way. Open that up, and we have our signed both search warrant as well as sealing entry with all our stamps and everything placed right into the templates. Police officers have the ability to come in, download those digitally certified PDF documents, print them right off, of course, serve it, and then come back to the system to initiate the return process to the clerk's office. Now, before we do that, a couple of options. Right, now let's say this was rejected, this week I fixed it up, resubmitted it, like maybe next week, but the duty judge schedule changed. Right, we do have an option to submit an additional packet to that judge that I was working with previously, even though that judge isn't on the duty schedule or the on-call schedule this week. It's an option that we can turn on and off per template type and per court, of course. In this case, though, let's go ahead, close the engine here, go to our packets form, actually choose our court, get our return of service form, download this out of the system, right? Type our return up in Word, so then I can come back, create my return. Now what we're doing here is we're adding our return documents to the search warrant packet that we've built so far, right? So we have our warrant request and affidavit document here. We have our sealing document in this packet so far. I'm going to come in, click the add button, add the return document, upload that, and again we have the ability to define expected document types, right? So for a return, I'm expecting a return document. To ensure that's done, add. Now I need to open this up as the officer inside of ezWarrant. Send this document, checks my signature, the date, can come back. I'll have the ability to upload additional documentation should I need to do so. And at this point, click Submit Return button. Click Yes, and it'll go ahead and send the return off. Now, depending on the flow, this return document could go to the judge first for the judges to sign, and then the clerk's office, or directly to the clerk's office. In this example, we're going to flow it directly to the clerk's office. Okay. So here, we have the ability as the clerks to get a text, email, phone call. Now most likely we're going to use emails in the clerk's office, and we're going to really send it two queues, right? A sealed queue and a not sealed queue. Now, since we did inject a sealing entry and the judge did sign that, we see the red S indicator indicating that, hey, the search warrant packet has been sealed. So it sent it to the sealed clerk queue. And the clerks with just that sealed clerk queue permission would be seeing these documents. So they would open this up. Of course, the clerks see a very similar interface to the prosecutors and judges as far as all the content about the warrant. And they see the affidavit and warrant itself, the sealing entry form, and then the warrant return. You have the ability to open these up, look through those. Okay. And download each of those out of the system to process them. Now, if everything looks good, users in the clerk's office can click the green bar to complete it, or the clerks actually have the ability to reject. I also need the other return form. Mark it rejected, send it right back to that officer for them to upload their additional documentation and complete the process. And we'll click the green bar as the clerks to complete, continue, and that marks the process complete. Now there's a couple other options for the clerk's office, right? Instead of them actually being in the warrant portal, we have the ability to just send a secure link to the emails, right? Maybe a sealed email and a not sealed email distribution group, so it goes to the correct people in the clerk's office. They would simply click that link, download the documents, and handle it from there. Right? A little bit easier process. Of course, you lose the ability to approve or reject the warrants. You have to work with the officers directly, but a common adoption we're seeing is that of exactly how I explained. Now, one of the largest benefit of Warrant is the ability to tie these workflows and processes to each of our document types. What I mean by that is What happens once the police officer submits a warrant to the prosecutor? What does that message need to say? Who gets notified? When should they be reminded or re-notified? How long does the judge have to acknowledge a document? Once acknowledged, how long to process? What happens if they go unacknowledged 2-3 times, right? Does it go back to the officer? Does it go to a backup judge? ezWarrant has the ability to define every single one of those things. Check it out. Inside of the system, we have the ability as administrators to define our e-sign packet types, right? So these are really where we're going to define our templates and all of the settings for those templates. So for example, I have my search warrant template. I can say, hey, can that be an emergency? Should I have it expire? How many days after it's signed should it expire? Do I need a callback number? Should I allow that submission of an additional packet, even if a duty judge changes, right? Do you want to be able to get back to the previous judge? Can it be sent to the prosecutor, right? Does it always have to go through the prosecutor's office? Absolutely, so that way the submit to judge button goes away and it can only be sent to a prosecutor or district attorney. What's the minimum version we're gonna allow? Can it document be sealed? Can the judge inject a sealing template? Which group of judges should it go to? And so we could actually group our judges up to say, hey, all judges, just our common pleas judges, our family judges, if we're processing your juvenile protection orders through the system. Hey, once the judge signs the packet, what happens? A warrant return is required. Is it optional? Do we want to send it directly to the clerk? Where does the return go for this type? Does it go directly to the clerk's office? Does it have to go to the judge first? Is it just done? Right? And then which queues are we working with in the clerk's office? Our sealed queue is going to go to the clerk's sealed queues, and then our unsealed queue, or not sealed. What types of documents are we expecting upon the initial submission? Right? We need an affidavit and a warrant request. Right? And we can mark these document types required and say, hey, does the judge need to sign them? This helps further validate that we're getting the correct documents and warrant types from the jump. Same thing with the return process, right? We have our return form, we have our chain of custody form, and we can continue to add all of these expected document or attachment types to ensure that they're complete. And then of course we have our custom fields, right? We could do a search type field. What type of custom field should that be? We could make that string, right? Is it required? What kind of string? We can make it a list. Let's add a bunch of choices, DNA, car, home, right? Show as a drop-down. Do you want to allow multiple selections? And then who should be able to use this, right? Submitters, or law enforcement, they should be able to only edit this during the submission, right? Or they can edit it until the judge signs it. Prosecutors can view it, okay? But they can't do any edits. And then we could say also that the judges can view, can't edit it. Update that, add, we're good to go. Same thing, we could add another custom field. We could call this the judge field. What type of field is that? We'll just say it's we'll just do a string here. What kind of string? Single line, permission. Only the judges have the ability to view and edit that. Nobody else can see it. Update, add, that way we can collect additional information of this warrant just in the judge step. Now the workflow settings is where a lot of the magic is happening. Now this is where we can define all of the alerts and messages and reminders in which steps need to happen every step of the process. Right? When it's submitted to the prosecutor, we're going to send an email. And in this email, we're going to have the subject of new warrant, and then this type of document was submitted at this time by this person. Here's their phone number from this agency. We have dozens and dozens of these dynamic tags to provide as much context about the warrant right from the start. Right? They should acknowledge within 1 hour. If they don't, send a text. Right? If 90 minutes goes by, call them. Once approved, it gets sent to the judges. What happens with the judge, right? We send a text during the day. They should acknowledge within 30 minutes. They don't, send another text. They should sign or reject it in 15 minutes after they've acknowledged it. Right? If they don't, we could remind them again. And we may even add a fallback to say, hey, if it goes unreminded 3 times, notify the officer saying we couldn't get through to a judge, use traditional means or call somebody. Once it's signed, once it's rejected, we can define the amount of time that return should be submitted, right? So once signed by the judge, we need a return within 5 business days. If we're not getting it, keep messaging or emailing the officer consistently to ensure those returns are getting done. Now, we have the ability to define these workflow settings per document type or per template type, and then for each template type during normal business hours, after hours, right? So maybe we want to initiate some phone calls to be waking people up. And then if it's an emergency, and then again, in each of these steps, we can customize the message template itself, right? So for an emergency, we can say, hey, it's an emergency, OVI search warrant, and add the context in calls accordingly, right? Templates. This is where we can upload the templates to the system and actually make them available to the police officers. Now, these can be Word documents for them to download, type up in Word, re-upload to the system, or they actually can be fillable PDFs where they could fill them out right online. And then lastly, the sealing entry, where we can inject the sealing entry so prosecutors and judges can just say add, adds it in there, and it's good to go. Now, e-sign stamps. We have the ability to upload essentially SVG files and assign permissions to them, so only the correct users can inject these stamps in the system. We also can default the e-sign stamp size, just like you saw in the previous 15 or so minutes. Inject that stamp in there, and it's good to go. And then even have the ability to default that in from a size perspective. Right? Judge groups. Now, judges can either make themselves available in the system and be selected from a drop-down list by officers, or we actually can upload an e-signing schedule. So we can say, single click mode, 7 days, starting on Sunday. Let's make this 21 days. This is Jim Judge's time, then it switches to John Judge, then Sally Judge, then it repeats itself, and actually upload our on-call schedule into the system. So the judges will automatically be selected and sent right to the officers, so the officers aren't picking or having to maintain any schedules at all. And we also have the ability to do the same thing with the backup schedule. So we have our primary and then our backup schedules that can be uploaded into the system. Now, these judge groups can be defined as maybe our common pleas judges, or all of our judges, just our family or juvenile court judges, and assign our e-sign packet types accordingly so it goes to the correct group. Lastly is really our assignment queues, right? So this is our clerk's office queues to handle returns. So typically we're going to have a not sealed clerk queue and a sealed clerk queue. And then a common adoption is just to assign the role inside of Warrant. So the users that then get assigned those roles are automatically placed in the queues, so you don't have to go through and update the users every time. Add the users over in the user side, assign the role correctly, and then they're just placed in the queues accordingly. The very last thing we've done is added the ability for our warrants and then the information about the warrants to be exported out via FTP, and include the XML information to be used with e-filing systems or other integrations to push that into the document management system automatically. So we'll have the PDF documents that have been digitally signed and certified, as well as the XML information available for all those custom fields, data points, other elements about the warrants that you saw on the screens, able to be injected, processed, and then auto-populate different systems. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation of Warrant. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.